As a Java programmer, you've probably seen classes like this one. So we define some fields, we define a constructor with parameters, and then we assign the parameters to the fields. So basically every property has to be named 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the more properties you have, the more tiresome code like this gets to read. So today I want to show you 3 solutions to this boilerplate problem. So our goal is to only mention our properties once instead of 4 times. Okay, now before we do that, maybe let's understand the concrete example here first. So this is an example from parsing theory, of course, because I love parsers so much. So we have an interface for expressions, and every expression can be evaluated to a double result. Okay, and for that interface we have 3 implementations: number, plus, and times. Number captures a double x, so some constant, plus captures 2 subtrees, and times captures also 2 subtrees. Okay, and then the number inside the evaluation, which is the meat of the class, if you will, the rest is all boilerplate, simply returns the captured x. Plus evaluates the subtrees and then adds the subresults. And times is almost the same, but it multiplies the subresults instead of adding them. Okay, and then in the main function, what do we do here? First, we construct 2 numbers, then we combine them into a plus, then we construct 2 additional numbers, combine them into an additional plus, and those pluses are then combined into a times object. Okay, then we have an expression, and later we can evaluate that expression, and that should print 60, because 5 times 12 is 60, and indeed, that's what happens. Okay, so now let's look at 3 solutions to the boilerplate problem. And again, let me emphasize, this isn't restricted to parsing examples. So every time you have properties that you initialize, you can use the following solutions. So the first one is a rather modern solution, records, a preview feature in Java 14 and 15. So basically, you only have to write the parameter list, if you will, after the class name, and you have to use the record keyword. And then the field is automatically generated for you, and the assignment from the parameter to the field is also automatically generated for you. So this is really cool. Also, you get equals, hashcode to string and stuff. So if you also want that, the more the merrier. If you don't want that, maybe records aren't the solution for you. Okay, of course you can't really use records in production code yet either, because you're still on Java 11.8 or maybe 7. I hope not. I hope everyone is at least at Java 8 now. But even if you are on Java 14 or 15, in production you can't really use preview features, because their definition might change, the syntax might change, the semantics might change. So we will have to wait until the feature is finalized before we can put it into production code and still sleep well. Okay, so first solution, more in the future. So what's the second solution? Here's our second solution. What did I do here? Basically, I replaced the concrete named classes number, plus, and times with factory functions with the same name, number, plus, and times, but of course with lowercase, because now they are not types, but names of methods. And these factory functions return instances of anonymous inner classes. So what you see here, just in case you're not familiar, this is a Java 1.1 feature from 1997. So basically every system out there should support this. And it simply means I want to define a class that implements the expression interface, and then I also want to create an object of it. Okay, and the implementation of evaluate is the same as before. And the interesting part is here we return x. It looks like x is the parameter of the factory function, but if you think about it, that can't possibly be the case, because if someone calls the number function and passes maybe 42 into it, then we get back this object, and now the factory function is done. The parameter x doesn't exist anymore. And later when we call evaluate, this must be a different variable. It can't be the original parameter. That's long gone from the stack. Okay, so similar to our own capturing, as I called it, something like this has to be generated by the compiler for this code. Okay, so how can we be sure? How can we check it? Well, let's simply look at the bytecode that the compiler generates. Here you can see how you can look at the bytecode. Okay, so here we see our first factory function. This is the x that is passed in. What happens inside the factory function? So first of all, we allocate an object of type expression $1, which is the JVM name for the anonymous inner class. So inner classes are a Java source feature. They don't exist in the JVM, so the compiler simply maps them to funny looking class names. Okay, here we invoke the constructor. So this class and then .init in angle bracket, that's the JVM name for the constructor. And note that we pass the double into the constructor and the constructor doesn't return anything. So this is the void return type. It's a common misconception that constructors return the objects they initialize, but that's not the case. So the new expression returns a reference to the object. The constructor itself doesn't do that. So that's why you never write a return statement inside of a constructor, right? Okay, so constructors are basically normal methods with a funny looking name, but they're not so normal. They are somehow special, but still return type is void. Okay, and here the reference is then returned from the factory function. Okay, and similar down here. So the dload loads the double parameter and an A-load loads a reference parameter, right? So that's the only difference here, basically. One double compared with two references. Okay, cool. Right, and then these classes, expression 1, expression 2, maybe let's look at one of those classes, right? So expression $1, here I decompiled expression $1. How does it look? So you can see indeed we have this field that was automatically generated by the compiler. Again, a funny name. It's not called x in the bytecode. It's called val$x. And then the constructor accepts the double that we passed in earlier. Here, that double is stored in the field. So that's the assignment in the constructor body. And here we simply call the constructor of the Java lang object class. Since we don't inherit from anything explicitly, we inherit from Java lang object. And again, the constructor doesn't return anything. Okay, cool. Right, so and then the evaluation is rather simple. We simply load the field val$x and then return it as a double. Okay, cool. So I think this is a perfectly fine approach. So of course you may find it strange that all those factory functions are inside the interface. You don't have to do that. You can put the factory functions in a different class or each factory function in its own class. That's just my personal preference to have all the implementations inside the interface. And that's possible since Java 8. So static methods in interfaces is a Java 8 feature. If you don't have Java 8, just put it somewhere else. Okay. Now, in this specific example, we only have a single abstract method in our interface. And you probably also already know that interfaces with a single abstract method are special in Java 8 because you can implement them with lambdas. So probably we can replace this, this code, these 6 lines, with a lambda. And indeed, that's what happens in the third solution. Here you can see it. The entire body is now a single line that returns a lambda. And that lambda implements that interface basically. So this is the empty parameter list of the evaluate method. And then this is the body that returns a double. In our case, the parameter here. Okay, and same thing for plus and times, just of course, slightly more complex implementations that we already saw. Okay, cool. Now, how is this compiled? So a common misconception is that lambdas are just syntactic sugar. They are compiled down to anonymous inner classes. That's not the case. So let's look at the bytecode. Here we can see it. So inside our first factory function, again, we load the parameter, and then this really weird invoke dynamic number 1, 0 captures that parameter in an implementation of the expression interface. And then later, when the evaluate method is called on that implementation, the captured parameter is delegated to a special method that we can see further down here. Here you can see it. So this method is then later called by the implementation. The double is passed on, and what happens is that the double is simply returned back to the caller. Right? So basically the identity function, return x, where x is the parameter that was passed in. Okay, and similarly for the other factory functions, again, instead of a single double that should be captured, now we want to capture 2 references. But the rest is exactly the same. Okay, and the implementations down here, maybe let's quickly look at them. So here we evaluate the first recursive subtree. Here we evaluate the second recursive subtree. Here we add those subresults, and then we return the sum. Whereas down here we multiply the subresults and return the product. Okay, cool. And all these additional classes, expression $1, expression $2, expression $3, are not generated anymore. So this is also good for your hard drive space if you want to save a few kilobytes per class. Maybe. I don't think it's even 1 kilobyte per class. Okay, if you're wondering why this is realized with Invoke Dynamic, I'm going to put a link down to a video of Brian Getz where he discusses why Invoke Dynamic was chosen and how it works exactly under the hood. That's a really cool 45 minutes watch. Okay, but again, this only works for a single abstract method interface. In reality, if you want to apply this to classes which have a dozen services or repositories or whatever, then you have to fall back, of course, to the non-lambda solution. And I've done this in practice for my own private projects. I really, really like this style. Okay, cool. So I hope you learned something today. So every time you see boilerplate code like this, you can think about, can I somehow simplify this with this interesting closures approach?